again, we're going to start this one just like we always do. We're going to circle our variable because we want to get that f by itself. We're going to draw our line through the equal sign. And then also, since we have squares here, we want to put a box around that square because the first thing I do is get that square by itself. Now, in this problem, I can't really subtract 4 squared because there's no way to do 6 squared minus 4 squared without doing something else first. So what are we going to do with the 6 squared and the 4 squared before we get started? Julia? So what we're going to do here to start is we're going to figure out what 6 squared is. 6 squared is 6 times 6, so instead of 6 squared, we're going to write what, Julia? 36. And then the 4 squared is 4 times 4, which is 16, so we'll bring a 16 down for that, and that's going to be positive. Nothing else can simplify, so what do I do with this f squared here? Just bring that down. Okay, don't forget the square on the f. That's really important. We didn't do anything to get rid of that square, so we need to keep it there. Now that we've done that, what can we do next? Levante?
Subtract.
Yeah, now we can subtract that 16. Get rid of the plus 16 by subtracting 16. And so Levante, when those 16s cancel on the right side, what's going to be left on the right side?
The F2.
F2? You mean f squared, right?
Yeah, F squared.
Okay. And how about on the left side?
20.
36 minus 16 is going to be 20. Okay. Now I have the square by itself. So the next thing I need to do is get rid of the square. And how do I get rid of a square? Take the square root, right? So if I take the square root of the f squared, that's going to cancel out the square. But if I take the square root of the right side, I also have to do the same thing to the left side. So I'm going to take the square root on the left side. So on the right side, my square and square root are going to cancel. And I'm left with what? On the right side? F. Okay. How about on the left side?
Square root of 20.
Okay, we have the square root of 20. Now, do we know what the square root of 20 is?
No.
So, since 20 is not a perfect square, there's nothing that multiplies by itself to get 20, right? Or at least no whole numbers. So I can't figure out what it is as a number, as a whole number. But what can I do with the 20? Levante, do you remember? Yeah. So Levante is saying we can simplify that. So what we're going to do is we're going to go off to the side. I'm just going to write my square root of 20 over here. And we're going to factor the 20. 4 times 5, 5's prime, 2 times 2. And then this is the same thing we did yesterday in our opener with the 360, right? So we rewrite it as the square root of 2 times 2 times 5. And then what can I do? I'm going to circle pairs, and what's going to happen with those pairs? Where are they going to go? They're going to go on the outside. So this is the same thing as 2 square root of 5. All right, so what do I do with that? Where do I write that? We're going to write that down here on the left side of the equation. So the square root of 20 here, we just simplified that over here, and we said the square root of 20 is the same thing as 2 square root of 5. So we're going to write that over here. And that's your final answer. So in this problem, unlike the other ones we've done so far, there is no whole number answer. So we need to simplify our square root before we put a box around our answer. All right, so we're going to start this just like all the other ones. We'll draw our line through the equal sign, and we're going to circle our variable. We've got g's in a bunch of different places here, right? So this is going to kind of go back to what we were doing last week and the week before, where we have variables in different places. All right, I will tell you right now, looking at this, are there any squares in this problem? No. So at first, it doesn't really look like it has anything to do with the types of problems we've been doing. That may change, it may not. We'll see when we get there. But if we have variables in different places, what's the first thing we want to do? This is just a review of what we did before. We're not going to combine like terms yet. There's something else we have to do first. Distribute, right? So before we can do anything else, we have these parentheses here that are being multiplied by something, so we need to distribute. All right, so we are going to distribute the 2g times the 3g n times the negative 7. All right, so what is 2g times 3g?
6G.
Close.
Oh,
It's not 6g, but it's 6g squared. Why is it squared?
because it's 2G.
Yeah, it's g times g, right? So 2 times 3 gives us the 6. G times g is g squared. Everybody understand that? Okay. How about 2g times negative 7? Negative 14g. Remember, it was 2g times negative 7. So the 2 times negative 7 gives us the negative 14, and then we also need that g in there. Okay? Now, we distributed here. Is there anything else to distribute anywhere else?
No, sir.
No. So what do we do with everything else?
14.
Just bring everything else down. So we've got our plus 14g there, and then equals 150. All right. What's the next thing we do after we distribute?
We do.
We're going to combine like terms. Do we have any like terms here?
Yeah, we got negative 14G plus 14G.
Okay, so first of all, is the 6g squared and the 14g, are those like terms? Why not? Because one of them is squared and the other one is not. All right, so since one's squared and one's not, those are not like terms. But the negative 14g and the positive 14g, those are like terms because they both have a g in there. All right, so what is negative 14g plus 14g? No? It's 0, right? Those actually cancel each other out. Remember, if we want to get rid of a minus 14g, we could add 14g on. All right, so these two are actually going to be 0, so they're just going to cancel each other out. These are gone. So what does that leave?
Nothing.
6g squared. And on the right side, we're going to have 150. Okay, we're getting closer to having the g by itself. We still need to get rid of the 6, and we still need to get rid of the square. We never really did box our square, did we? So if you look over here, when we get to this point here, we want to get that square by itself before we can get rid of the square. So I got rid of the negative 14g and the positive 14g. That was kind of nice. They just cancel each other out. But I also need to get rid of this 6. So how am I going to get rid of that 6? How do I get rid of that 6? Yeah, that's times 6 right there. So we're going to get rid of that by dividing by 6. And might need a calculator for this one. So the 6's cancel on the left side, which leaves what? G squared. And on the right side, 150 divided by 6 is 25. If you think about that, 6 quarters would be $1.50, right? So 6 times 25, or 6 times 25 cents would be 150 cents, or $1.50. So that's one way you could do it, maybe without a calculator. And then one last thing I need to do. I still don't have the g by itself. What do I have to get rid of? I have to get rid of the square. So how do I get rid of a square? Take the square root. So I'm going to take the square root here. That's going to get rid of my square. But if I take the square root on the left side, I have to take the square root on the right side. All right, so on the left side, that square and square root cancel each other out, which leaves what? G. And on the right side, the square root of 25 is 5. What other answer could work here? Yeah, remember when we solve an equation with a square and we take the square root, it could either be positive 5 or negative 5, but we're only going to give the positive answer for now. You don't need to worry about the negative one.